Hey guys, welcome to the first video in the mini bite-sized series. Just going to be talking you through the breakdown of the smoker today. I myself, I've got a BB-HQue water smoker, also called a bullet smoker because of the shape. It's one of sort of like 4 types that you generally see in gardens across the UK, people that are into barbecuing and smoking. So water smokers such as this. There's also the Weber Smoky Mountain as well. It's a pretty popular choice. You can also smoke just on a regular kettle barbecue, but I really just reserve that for grilling, do all my smoking on the BB-HQue. And then other kind of smokers that you'll generally see over here, so just smaller offset smokers, and then ceramic grills like the Komodo or the Green Egg. So let's dive in for a closer look at the BB-HQue. Now, regardless of whichever smoker type we're talking about, they've all got some core fundamental characteristics that they all share. First and foremost, you need a heat source. So this is the charcoal bowl on the water smoker or the firebox on an offset smoker. Ultimately somewhere where you're going to be creating your fire to cook, to generate the heat to cook the food. In an enclosed space like this where we've got a heat source, it means that we also need a vent or a chimney. What we're talking about here though is something that's going to allow a draft to pull through all of that smoke through all of the chambers while the food is exposed to all of the smoke. That's the top and bottom. Now let's talk about what's going on in between those two areas. Next key thing to think about is the heat diffuser. So in the water smoker, clues in the name there, we've just got a huge water pan that sits directly above the fire. So absorbing some of that heat, allowing us to achieve that low and slow temperature that we're looking for. Above the heat diffuser, we've got the cooking chamber or the smoking chamber. In the BB-HQue, we've got a cooking grate that sits directly above the heat diffuser, the water pan, and another cooking grate that sits just at the top. Moving on to the vents, a really core component part. This is ultimately what's controlling our airflow to the fire, so what controls how hot it gets or our ability to try and lower that temperature slightly. The more air we let in, the more the fire's going to burn, the hotter it'll get. The more we restrict air getting in, and that's going to dampen the fire down slightly. As a general rule of thumb, I always start with the bottom vents half open, because then that gives us a little bit of leeway either way. We can either open up to try and raise the temperature a bit more, or close it off slightly just to try and bring that temperature down. Never really want to be restricting the airflow entirely though, because then that could be killing the fire off. Also at the top we have the top vent. Again, general rule of thumb, I pretty much always just leave that completely open. What we don't want to do is over smoke the food or choke the fire, so generally leave the top vent open and then play around with the bottom 3 just to try and control the airflow that way. Those are the core characteristics that pretty much every smoker is going to have. Just a few other things on the BB-HQue just to talk to you about. I've got these little eyelets here, little holes to put digital probe thermometers through. Mine are actually a little bit too big for that, so I don't use those, but that's what those are all for. Lid thermometer in the top of the dome. To be honest with you, that stopped giving accurate readings quite a while back, and I've only ever really used a digital thermometer on the actual grill itself. So although a lot of them have them, they're generally just a loose rule of thumb. I tend to go off the digital thermometer instead. Then we've got access doors as well. So in the top unit, that's generally going to be allowing access to the water pan, and then the bottom access door, that's allowing access through to the fire, so through to the charcoal bowl. So either topping up the fuel or also putting on wood chunks or wood chips. Only other thing that's worth talking about as well, and this is something that I've done to I guess a slight modification, is using this gasket tape. So heat resistant tape. It's got sort of like a slightly woolly, spongy feel to it, and what that does is it stops a lot of the air leaks. It just makes the cooker a lot more insulated. So I've got that running around every unit. I've got it on the doors as well. Ultimately, wherever there was heat escaping, I use that gasket tape just to shore things up a bit. But that's a nice little modification. It's definitely worth thinking about if you do get your own smoker. Going to quickly finish off talking you through those same areas, just a quick recap, having broken down the smoker into all of its component units. So starting at the bottom, the charcoal bowl, so that's where our heat's going to be coming from, putting all the charcoal on there, and then the wood chips or chunks to generate the smoke. Again, slight rule of thumb, I start off with about a chimney starter's worth of unlit charcoal that sits in there, lit charcoal that goes on top, then that will burn for about, with vents half open, that will burn for about 6 hours at about 100 degrees Celsius. That's pretty much the perfect temperature we're looking for smoking. Between 225 and 250 Fahrenheit, or about 105 to 120 in Celsius. Next unit that sits on top of that, there's our heat diffuser. So in this instance, it's our big water pan. To hit those temperatures I was just talking about, that water pan's going to be about 3/4 full. And then we've got the first cooking grate that sits on top of that. The next unit itself, so this is our main cooking chamber, or the smoking chamber, with another cooking grate that sits on top of that. So we've got 2 grates in total that we can smoke on. And then finally, the dome that sits at the top of the whole smoking unit, lid thermometer, and then our ever important chimney vent as well. So I hope that was useful. I've had this smoker for a few years now. Got it in about 2013, I think. Been really impressed with it. It's never really let me down, and I can't speak highly enough of it, to be honest with you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.